you, Bradford. This is the day. Super Bowl day, Valentine's Day, golfing day, and choir day. So we have the day today. So welcome to West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Reverend Clyde Goings. I'm the assistant minister here, and I want to welcome you here on this beautiful Sunday morning. And as we come together to remember our truth, to remember that we are that individualized expression of God, expressing life, and for the sole purpose of Valentine's, we're here to express love every day and always. So that's what Valentine's is all about, is giving love and receiving love, and I'm sure that we all do that very well. All right, so I've got a couple of quick announcements. The first one is, I just want to remind everybody that we have our business meeting next weekend, and so we're going to be going over the business of the church, and Reverend Karen is going to give you her vision for 2023, which is very, very exciting. And if that is not enough draw, it's also dining with the dudes. All right, so we're going to have food to feed you, and we're going to nourish you, your mind, your soul, and your belly. So please join us next week for that business meeting. Kathy Royer is having her class, and it's on Thursdays. Essential Earnest on Thursdays from 1:30 to 3:30, and people still can join the class. So if you're interested in learning more about Ernest Holmes, please come to her class on Thursday. And do we have the picture, Julie? All right. So if you guys don't know what this is, I don't see Kathy's name up there yet. Okay, just checking. All right, so this is our fundraiser. I should say this is my fundraiser that I'm inviting all of you guys to participate with. And so, yes, I'm going to be hounding everybody about it, even people online. So what we're doing is, and I've shared this with you, is that Fry's, they will donate money to nonprofit organizations, and you can get up to $50,000 a quarter, okay? And all you have to do is shop, right? So if you shop at Fry's and you have a Fry's reward card, you will still get your benefits, right? For example, I love Fry's because when I go to the gas station and I get my discount on gas, that makes me smile every time that happens. Well, it's going to make the community smile if you put our community as your beneficiary for your rewards as well. So as you shop, you still get your rewards, and then the community, the Fry's, will donate money to the community. So when you sign up for this Fry's rewards, so you get your points, and then the community gets the money, then we're going to put your name on the brown card. So you can see we've got several brown names up there, or brown sheets up there, and what that represents is the community. And that we're not going to stop there. Now, I'm not going to let you stop there, right? So let me explain why. So that's the first step. And then the second step is, you see there's yellow sheets up there. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but both of them say Reverend Clyde on it. Okay? Just saying. Okay. But the yellow sheets, what the yellow sheets represent is that what my ask for everybody is that after you sign up, then I'm asking for you to ask your friends and your neighbors, just ask them, do you shop at Fry's? And then give them the same spiel as I gave you, right? And we have little sheets that gives them instructions on how to sign people up. And we ask that they sign up and put our center as their beneficiary, right? So every time they shop at Fry's, they're still going to get their rewards, but we are going to get the cash once a quarter, okay? And so this is my goal. You're going to hear this for the whole entire quarter for this quarter, okay? Yeah. All right. So, and I'm very, very excited. We're moving along there. So I know that we're going to start getting to see some more yellow here. And then if you need help signing up or making sure that our centers are listed as your beneficiary, come and see me after service or before service, and then I'll work with you and make sure you get signed up. All right. So thank you for hearing me. And I'm going to let somebody else explain this next week. See if you guys are paying attention. Yeah. All right. So thank you. So if you will just sit back, relax. Open up your hearts and your minds. Feel the love in the center. Know that you're in a safe place because this is our spiritual home. And the Bradfords will bring us into that centering space. Thank you.
quiet place within my heart. I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know.
I will make a quiet place within my mind. I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know.
I will make a quiet place within my life,
And
I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place.
As we breathe in that divine loving presence, which I call God. God is love and joy and peace and beauty, an infinite divine expression that is expressing right here, right now, through each and every one of us. Every fiber of my being is filled with that divine love and expression that I call God. And knowing that God is within me and within each and every one of you, today I declare I move forward in a space of ever-loving presence of joy and love, because God is love. And it is that knowingness that I am one with that expression, that each of you are one with that expression, that I open my heart with gratitude, knowing that it is flowing right here and now through each and every one of us with joy, peace, and ease. I declare this. I let it be done. I know I walk in the presence of God every moment. And together we say, and so it is. Thank you, God. Today I'm going to read to you from the Science of Mind textbook, from the section Teaching of Jesus, the teachings of Jesus. And love is the center flame of the universe, the very fire itself. It is written that God is love, and that we are his expressed likeness, the image of the eternal being. Love is self-givingness through creation, the impartation of the divine through the human. Love is the essence, an atmosphere which defies analysis and does life itself. It is that which is and cannot be explained. It is common to all people, to all animal life, and evident in the response of the plants to those who love them. Love reigns supreme over all. The essence of love, while elusive, pervades everything, fires the heart, stimulates the emotion, renews the soul, and proclaims the spirit. Only love knows love. And love knows the only words cannot express the depths of its meaning. The universe senses alone bears witness to the divine fact. God is love, and love is God. And so it is.
Here we go. My funny Valentine, sweet comic Valentine, you make me smile with my heart. Your looks are laughable, unphotographable, yet you're my favorite work of art. Is your figure less than Greek? Is your mouth a little weak? When you open it to speak, are you smart? Don't change your hair for me, not if you care for me. Stay, Valentine, stay. Each day is Valentine's Day. That's my honey. Is your figure less than Greek? Is your mouth a little weak? When you open it to speak, are you smart? Don't change your hair for me, not if you care for me. Stay, Valentine, stay. Each day is Valentine's Day.
Oh, that was so lovely. That was so lovely. I just love it when you go, that's my honey. Good morning. Happy Valentine's Day. Couple days early, but we're celebrating it here at church on Sunday, along with Happy Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay, phew. Somebody is a football fan. All the rest of the football fans are tailgating right now. You know they are. We used to do our annual meeting we used to have it calendared for the second Sunday in February until we figured out it wasn't conducive to getting people here. So good morning, and indeed it is a day of gorgeous, the celebration of love in that romantic way where people are thinking about chocolates and flowers. And I understand we have some congregants that are attending the Super Bowl. Imagine that. That's not well, I'm not a football fan, so what do I know, right? But, but that'd be a pretty big Valentine's gift. I brought with me my most favorite romantic gift my husband ever gave me. And it's in this gold package. Do you wonder what it is? It's still in the package, but it's not chocolate. No, it's not chocolate. It is a book. It is a book that my beloved had written for me on a Valentine's Day a long, long time ago. It's a romance novel about Lady Karen and the pirate named Hugo. And they even put his pictures on the back cover. And let me just read you the snippet of how they write about what the book is about. Pirates of Desire, the name of the book. It's written in the 1700s. It's from that time period. Pirates of Desire stars Lady Karen, a stunning aristocrat who yearns to be a swashbuckling buccaneer, and she is eager for high seas adventure until, of course, she finds herself captured by the infamous pirate captain Hugo Rice. Scoundrel, handsome rogue, aptly named the Sea Wolf by all the authorities that look to arrest pirates and, I don't know, take away their peg legs or something. I don't know. So I have one long-standing special romantic gift that didn't get eaten or die because it was a cut flower, right? The title of my message this morning is Receptive to Love. Because I wanted to talk about love, but what we know about that kind of love that's celebrated on Valentine's Day, that romantic kind of love, that could be sort of a doorway into understanding a much broader and more beautiful definition of love. Really good reading, Reverend Susan. Thank you so much. Because it sort of speaks to everything that I want to say today. And actually a little more. There were a couple things you were reading and I thought, oh yeah, it's that too, because it's a big topic. And I think the fact that Dr. Holmes speaks about it almost poetically, that it's indescribable. We really can't define it, and yet we certainly do try to. So that romantic love can indeed be an entryway into a greater experience of love. But what we understand is that when we begin to look at the spiritual aspect of love and that idea that God is love, and then what does that mean in all the ways that Reverend Susan read, we see that it's more than a soulmate. We see that it's more than a partner to share expenses with or to help us rear our children. We see it's more than companionship even, and that though that is true, it also seems that the relationship part of partnering is an experience that leads us to a deeper understanding of something. This morning I'm going to call it relational wholeness. So there's a way in which our experiences of relationship with each other, whether it's a congregant that you only see on Sundays, whether it's your significant other, or it's a stranger in the grocery store or one of your neighbors in your neighborhood, it doesn't matter. There are ways in which we recognize our connectedness that then puts us in a sort of a spiritual experience of that relational wholeness. In other words, together we are the all of humanity, and it is through our relationships that include the way we bump into each other in terms of, just about everything, and that those are the ways which we learn that deeper experience and that more wonderful definition of what love is. So when I examine the topic of love from a spiritual perspective, I start with that scripture that says God is love. And then we expand it from there. So Dr. Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of this teaching, says things like God is the self-givingness of spirit. And he speaks to, along with all the other deep thinkers on religious and spiritual matters, they speak to that idea that there's this givingness, this outpouring of grace that comes continually in the universe. It's alive and active all the time. And our experience of either having love in our life or not having love in our life comes and is dependent upon our willingness to be receptive to it. So can you receive it? But more than just receiving it is, can we open ourselves to allow that experience of love to move through us? So we define love then as, we often hear the metaphysicians call it this great impulse that brings all things into being. It's a compelling force. My favorite line is when they call it a cosmic force for good. That one we can kind of relate to. In fact, I got an image of Star Wars or something in my mind. You know, there's this cosmic force for good that is managing everything in the universe, and we can learn to observe it or expect it or have an experience or a taste of it, though we may not feel like we can stay in that energetic flow of it all the time. But it's certainly ours for the taking. I love the idea that this understanding of love is an invitation for us to open, for us to be receptive to it. If you want to understand love, we want to be it. We want to open to that experience of it. So it is very much like being a vessel or a conduit where we open ourselves and allow that love to flow through us so that it can be expressed on the planet. What it boils down for me, it always boils down to this, and that is, am I ready to receive? Can I be, clear out that which is icky and the thinking? Am I ready to receive that cosmic force of goodness into my own awareness? And I like to believe that we are, and we can be, in a very quick change of our mind. So if you're not feeling happy and loving, know that doesn't mean you can't be in the very next moment. It's an opening to just have a thought that it's possible. We plant that seed, and then we see that sprout in our life. Here's the quote that inspired me to use those words to be receptive to love. It comes from a book Dr. Ernest Holmes wrote called Can We Talk to God? And here's what he says. We are surrounded by an infinite mind, which, should we become receptive to it, it could acquaint us with anything and everything. We are surrounded by an infinite mind. I think that's a part of that cosmic force we're talking about. We are surrounded by that. It is the mind of God. It is the infinite intelligence that's behind all of creation, and we can witness the effects of that beautiful creating from that impulse of love when you see the beauty in a flower or the innocence of a newborn baby. And it stirs us in that beautiful way. So Holmes is saying here, if we pay attention to these things, we can possibly then, because it's available to us, come to understand many things in life. In fact, he says anything and everything. That idea that all of life is permeated with that wisdom and with that love should be, it should tempt us to want to be open to it, to be receptive to it. Because if we start tapping into anything and everything, that kind of wisdom of the universe, we can then make peace in our own lives with finding our place in this big, vast universe. We can then make peace with some of the things that we can't quite comprehend in our mind, but our heart understands, like when something devastating happens on the planet, like the earthquake in Syria and Turkey. We can't intellectually understand how that could be, and that kind of great loss of life is hard to comprehend. And yet, at the level of the heart, it stirs our compassion, and then that our love can flow, and then we can be a part of the positive healing that begins after something devastating occurs. It can also help us make sense of some of the little things that seem to, irritate us. Like, for instance, I have such trouble figuring out how I fell in love with a man who didn't like beets or Brussels sprouts. I love beets and Brussels sprouts. It's like, how could that be? How could we be matched together if I can't even talk about preparing those foods in the kitchen because he makes such a big fuss. It's worse than kids that turn down good food, So you learn to serve food in a way that everybody has a little something to eat, but I can't reconcile that. That's hard to understand, right? But then Holmes says, but when we acquaint ourselves with that kind of love, that infinite intelligence, then other things happen. So, not only did he not like beets and Brussels sprouts, but I promise you, every election, he voted for the wrong candidate. Without fail. Now, some of you know this story about us, but when we first got married, we belonged to a church where you were politically neutral. We never voted. But that only lasted about 15 years, and then we went our own ways, and we figured out that, we have a big problem now because we do not agree on I swear anything political. It just was humorous. So much so that the Daily Tribune in the San Gabriel Valley did a front page article with a photo of us on the front of it saying, because we used to argue in the letters to the editors, we used to argue politically about I have a copy of it. If you want to see it, I can show it to you. I keep it in my desk drawer. Because I think there's something really beautiful about the way we had irreconcilable differences. Right? And this is real life. If you've ever partnered in any way, you see this is true beyond beets and Brussels sprouts. Yes, I hear agreement. Yes, this is very true. So we had views that were not compatible, but we also believed that love heals all things. And this is a really important lesson because I believe when you stand in that cosmic force of love, that cosmic force for good, then you can stand together when you are experiencing differences. So in a way, I felt like our differences gave us a deeper sense of love. It taught us how to be compatible in ways beyond what we thought we would have to figure out when we were just having that romantic love. When chocolates and flowers made a difference. But I do believe that it's the differences that we experience in all of our relationships that help us learn that in love, we find a way. That in love, in God, nothing is impossible, right? With God, in God, all things are possible, and certainly love is always possible. So maybe the secret about living with differences and experiencing irreconcilable opinions, it's just an opportunity to see that love is more powerful than any opinion or any personal belief. And I certainly know that Hugh and I lived that publicly, and we did it well. We duked it out, but we didn't let it interfere with the way that we loved each other. Now, that's an education, and I think that that's a blessing when we are in a relationship and we are not afraid to face our differences. So a lot of people think that their silence and their lack of arguing is a sign of a healthy relationship, and I would just put a question mark behind it. Is it? I personally need to know my relationship is safe enough that we can talk about anything. Now, when we did attempt to talk politics, we learned that we could only do it when we weren't heated about something that was current in the news, right? We couldn't talk about the issues because there wasn't a single issue we agreed on. But if I was feeling really confused by something that was happening on his side of his views, it's not my side, there would be times where I would feel humble enough and curious to just put it out there. Can we have a conversation about this? Honey, can you help me understand why that group of thinkers, why are they all fired up over this issue or that issue? I can't make sense of it. Can you help me understand? And in that kind of humility, it could open the door to a conversation where he would speak to me and he would speak from his heart. And when people speak to you from their heart, you can feel that. And that's when we allow the love to keep flowing, even though there might be some sharp edges to some points of the conversation. So we learned that we weren't, I was going to say not necessarily agree. We learned that we would not agree. We learned that was the truth of our views. And we also learned that we could be safe in the contrasting views, and that sometimes the contrast is where the uniqueness in the fit comes. I like to say there's beauty in contrast. Curiosity would be what fueled me, and then love would be what kept me open. And then when he would, with those two things together, we can listen. We can listen without creating our half of the argument just because we see things differently. When we stand in love, we just don't make the other person wrong, no matter who the other person is. When we stand in love, remember that. When we get scared or we get worried, or we're really attached to something we believe in, then it's hard to stand in love. Then we're going to stand in a specific, the effect of something that worries us. But it's not necessarily real. So love not only does not make the other person wrong, but when I would be having an exchange like that, where I am conscious in what I'm saying and how I'm listening and what he's saying and all of that, then in that place of love, we also do not have to change the other person. I don't even need him to hear my views. He knew what my views were, and I knew what his views were. This was another way for us to connect. So I don't need to change him. I don't need to fix him. I don't need to save him from his evil ways, I couldn't make him eat Brussels sprouts, that's for damn sure. But you stand in love, and then none of that matters. One of my most favorite quotes on love comes from Dr. Ernest Holmes, and we find it in the Science of Mind textbook. Holmes said, and this is an abbreviated form of a beautiful quote, "If we would look for a God of love, we must look long and deeply into each other." If we would look for a God of love, we must look long and deeply. Don't turn away. Right? We're looking to connect. We must look long and deeply into each other. Now, there's something so beautiful about that, the very idea of the way we look at each other. There's something so holy in that idea of pure connection. In all the new stuff, I keep saying new, but now they're getting old, but the studies coming out of neuroscience, our Sue Witter just took. She's fortunate in the School of Ministry that we have professors that are leading edge on what's happening now. And they said anything that's more than 2 or 3 years old is outdated now. So this is all outdated. But the neural studies, the neuroscience has told us, and they won't change their mind on this, I'm sure, but that they believe now that they look at the brain and they say that we are wired for connection, that we require it, that we crave it, that cosmic urge of life and that force of good, that's part of the wiring of our very brains. But I take that a step further and I think of that scriptural passage that says, where 2 or more are gathered. Where 2 or more are gathered, there too is God. When we come together for the purpose of any spiritual conversation, whether it's about the Super Bowl or politics, if you pull a little God in it, where 2 or more are gathered, there too is God, and therefore there too is love. And I think the more we are aware of our desire to bring that love with us into these conversations, then the more evident the presence of love will be. I have never, personally, I know this to be true of me, and if you don't know this about yourself yet, try it as an experiment. I have never been able to stay mad at somebody when I'm in their presence and I look them in the eyes. I don't think it can be done. I mean, if you're carrying on a story about how they hurt your feelings, or maybe then, but if you let that go and you stand in the presence of love and you look in the eyes of another human being, you cannot possibly not have that moment of pure and holy connection. So I like to, I notice if I'm in the grocery store pushing my cart and somebody does something that offends me in some way and it's a total stranger, it's easy to forget a stranger as a human. If I notice if they then say something like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," then it's like, doggone it, I didn't want to acknowledge that person. I just wanted to go on my way and keep being mad. But if I look and say, no problem, even if I'm not feeling it yet, I haven't found forgiveness in my heart yet for whatever they did that I figured, wasn't appropriate. If I have not found that place of love, but I look in their eyes, you can't be mad. You can't be mad because at the level of our soul, we desire connection with each other. It's easy to be annoyed with your neighbors. Especially if you have that one of those homes where you just push the button and the garage door opens and you're never making eye contact with them. But then there's that day you're taking the trash out and you've already made up your mind what you think about that neighbor. And then suddenly you feel compelled, and impulse of love washes over you, and you feel compelled to go, "Good morning." And then they maybe answer, maybe don't. But if they answer now, something happens in us that shifts and changes us because we've had a brief encounter of connection. We want to learn how to do that, because over time, the more and more open to love and to connection with each other, the more and more we do that, we begin to uncover something magnificent. And we begin to realize that we're not so different from each other. That as much as I desire to do the best I can every day, so does everybody else. And sometimes we do well, and sometimes we hope we get a do-over because we haven't done well. But we practice, all of these encounters, all of the bumps into differences between us and our values and the conflicts we have in our living. All of this is an invitation for us to try again, to return to love again. When I look back at my own spiritual growth, I remember that after I left fundamental religion, I had a gap, recuperation. And then I started seeking, I wanted a church or a philosophy or something. And eventually I found A Course in Miracles, which led me to religious science. And who knew, right? And I have this bookshelf at home of all the books that I believe most changed my life. And on that bookshelf, by the way, I have a bookshelf of all the Ernest Holmes, the books that Ernest Holmes read that influenced his life. And I have my own shelf on the other side of my office of the books that most impacted my life and changed me, grew me the best. And so there are titles like, authors like Og Mandino and the early Wayne Dyer. Remember when he wrote something about your erroneous zones? Right? I mean, come on. That's like he never wrote like that again. It was, but it was his beginning. I read, Marianne Williamson, and I read, that would be a few years later, and I read Terry Cole Whitaker, and so all of my favorite books that all those authors are up on that shelf. So the thing is, I don't ever let anybody see those books, because if I pull one down, if I open my Terry Cole Whitaker book, and you know what book changed my life, Terry Cole Whitaker wrote, What You Think About Me Is None of My Business. The title alone, you don't even have to read the book and you get the point, right? Now we have we were just talking about the 4 agreements before we came out this morning. Now we have the 4 agreements, don't take anything personal. But for me, it was Terry Cole Whitaker. She was so powerful, and she says to me through the book, what you think of me is none of my business. And it was very self-empowering. I was really happy to think about that. But in the margins of that book, I've written people's names. Some of you have done that too. I know you've done that, unless you don't write in your books. But you think about it. So when you're new on the spiritual path and the personal growth, it's like you're reading like, oh my God, who needs to know this? And you write that name down over there, and as if you could tell that person. But, and I look at it kind of like that first zeal you get when you find a new religion, and you just want to, everybody needs to be saved because I'm saved now, and you go out and and nobody likes you for a while till you calm down. And so... That's what it was kind of like for me as I started figuring out this new thought philosophy and seeing how much it spoke to me. But it has, my books are filled with other people's names. Now, what's even more interesting is that if I look at what the topic was, where I wrote somebody's name, I can see that it was an issue that I considered possibly a flaw in my own life, but I wasn't awake. I don't know what the right word would be. I wasn't aware, and I wasn't conscious enough to be able to own it. So now in the school of psychology, they tell us that that's just projection. That is a very normal human, it's a defense mechanism that helps us, not be so self-critical, because none of us would survive if nobody would have good self-worth if we didn't have those defense mechanisms until we are mature enough to claim it and to own it. So now I can look in those books and I can see next to so-and-so's name and so-and-so's name, I can see like, oh, isn't that cute? You hadn't figured out that part of your own development yet, right? So we're not accountable. And so we project outside of us and we see that flaw wherever it'll pop up. And believe me, it pops up everywhere. You know that, don't you? You'll see it everywhere, and then eventually we can, when we love ourselves enough, we can do that more personal, step-by-step work. It's very self-empowering to do that, and so when I look at that, that statement where Holmes said, "God bless you, God bless you, God bless you," where Holmes said we must look long and deeply into each other, I believe that he is summing up everything I'm talking about this morning. He's talking about that spiritual force cosmic urge to bring goodness to the planet. And, the goodness can't come to the planet unless we open ourselves to be that conduit, to let it flow through us and come into our experiences, which means that we will also have the opposite things happening too, where we do bump into each other. But we're all sort of working to uncover those hidden beliefs so that we can, expand in consciousness and bring better intentions to the planet. This is a really good example of relational wholeness. It's like there are obstacles that if we don't overcome those obstacles, it interferes with our ability to connect with each other. That term relational wholeness, I found, it's such a good word. And I found it when I was reading some work by Father Gregory Boyle. Father Gregory Boyle is that amazing priest who does his work in the Los Angeles area in rehabilitating gang members. Many of them are parolees. And they are we read one of his books, there's a lot of language in that book that speaks to the world that he works in, that he lives in. And he said this is such a beautiful quote that makes sense to me. When we embrace relational wholeness, this is what we've been talking about all morning, the way we are whole, that we all relate or don't relate to one another, but the quality of our relationships can either take us toward being more whole or being more separated. When we embrace relational wholeness, our divisions tremble. Love that quote. When we open ourselves to love, some kind of energetic shift happens at the very core of our being, and it is often an internal shakeup with great force. Are you ready to receive? Are you ready to be a vessel for love? Well, if you're willing to stretch yourself in that way that we can love each other more, to look into each other more deeply so that we can see God. If you are ready for that, then I will add to that this morning, then we also should be ready to cry as we see the death toll rising in the reports of the earthquake. We should be ready, and it's acceptable to shudder when you see images of what's going on in the Ukraine, or take any other incident, the latest shooting, perhaps even in our area here in Phoenix. Those things should make us shudder. And as we stand in that presence of love, it does not make sense from an intellectual way, but our heart and the soul of our humanity knows how to allow the compassion that comes through our tears and our shuddering to be a force on this planet that then helps to speed up the healing. We're a positive help for the healing. So I like that idea that when we embrace love as a connecting force, the divisions that formerly had our attention tremble, and we begin to see the connectedness of humanity. I wanted to end this morning with a story that I only tell every 4 or 5 years because it's a precious story and I never want to be tired of hearing it or telling it. It's something that happened to me when I was a new grandmother. My very first grandchild, and at the time she was my only grandchild, she was 3 years old and she was extremely articulate. This kid was smart as a whip, and she could have a conversation with the grown-ups like you wouldn't believe. And there was this day where I was babysitting her. Now, at the time, I was privileged to have I had this wonderful opportunity to write in a local paper in the San Gabriel Valley. It had a readership of about 30,000. It was one of those little free papers that you would find in front of bookstores and coffee shops. And it was the West Coast Wellbeing, and I wrote an article once a month, but I also had a second column that was called Interviews with Great Thinkers. I have often wanted to reinvigorate this project because it was so fun. I would interview interesting and unique people, and they weren't necessarily spiritual or religious, but they had an interesting take on life and world events. And so the first question I always asked in these interviews is, how would you define God? Okay, so I'm not talking to a group of church people. Right? Even in this room, we wouldn't agree on a definition, but I would ask people, even if they were atheists, it didn't matter to me, how would you define God? And then it would lead into a series of other questions. Now, my little 3-year-old granddaughter, my firstborn grandchild, her parents, my daughter and her husband, informed me that their child would not be exposed to any religious or spiritual ideas, and there certainly would be no God in her life, that she would be able to decide that on her own when she came of age. By the way, she's a mother now, and she's doing quite well in her ideas and beliefs. I'm so proud of her. We read a lot and study a lot of the same things. It's thrilling for me. But I'm alone with her. I'm not gonna try and make her believe anything, and I have this idea. I'm gonna ask her that first question. And so I said, Tori, she's playing with a toy. She never makes eye contact with me. She's just playing with her toy. Tori, what is God? And she doesn't answer right away. And she kind of walks over to another side of the room. She's playing with her toy, and she looks up. She looks around the room, and then she says to me, Bunya, do you see that picture of you and Grandpa on the wall? And it was our wedding picture. And it was a picture, he was much taller than me. It was this picture where we're looking, our faces are close, and we're looking into each other's eyes, and he has his hand on my cheek. And the love that we felt that day is so captured in that picture. She says, do you see that picture of you and Grandpa on the wall? And I said, yes, I see that picture. And she said, that's God. You see, there's power in that word. It doesn't have to be defined. That's just in our DNA. There's power in that word. And she could care less about, anything intellectual, but she looked at that picture and she told me that was God. She was seeing love. And it affirmed for me in a powerful, powerful way that only love is real, and that only love matters, and that God is love, and that perhaps we can understand that, and perhaps we will not, and it won't matter. But my ask this morning to all of you is to please just be open and receptive to love. That's what I wanted to say. I think we should pray. It's a big topic. So just feel the movement of love in this room right in this moment. Sense the vibration of love in the echo or the aftermath of this beautiful story of a 3-year-old that intuitively knows that God is love. I feel that movement deep at the core of my being, and I know that it is the same activity of life that abides and in the center and the core of each and every person listening to the sound of this prayer. These spoken words of prayer are the coming together of two or more individuals, whether we sit alone in our home and we're listening to this broadcast, or we're sitting in a chair in this sanctuary, we can feel that movement of love because we have joined and we are connected, and therefore God is here. So we feel that cosmic force for good, and we allow it to wash over us. We experience the cleansing and the purification of this simple thought that God is love, and that love is right where I am. And so we are given everything we need in that self-expressive action of God, that movement of life, that force of love in the universe. It is the very thing that brought everything into form. The greatest impulse in the universe, love. And so feeling renewed and uplifted and seeing that this celebration on a calendar is simply a doorway, it is an invitation, it is an opening for us to expand what we believe is possible in our experience of love, whether we are partnered or not. It matters not. For the movement of love is vibrant, it is active, it is healing. And we just allow ourselves to be that vessel, to have an experience of love. We open ourselves to feel the union of our own self with all the rest of humanity. We allow the heartache we feel when we read the headlines or hear the news, we allow that heartache to carve us out so that we might allow the compassion within us to flow out into the planet, and that the healing is intensified for those who are suffering. I feel the presence of love, and I pronounce that it is good, it is powerful, it is mighty. It is the essence of all connection, and therefore it exemplifies this healing force, this return to our wholeness, this way in which we have been called together in spiritual community to experience something wonderful. So I say, thank you, God, for these individuals that have dedicated themselves to be engaged with this community in any way. I am grateful. I am so grateful, not only for the way it builds community, but for the way it fills our hearts with more and more love. For in our actions with each other, our encounters, we see again the holiness of all of life. So I say thank you, God. Thank you, life. Thank you, Infinite Spirit, for all of this new vision, these new ideas, this new way of seeing the world and being the presence of love. I give thanks for this, and I release it now into the law, knowing it is already done. And together we say, and so it is. Amen. Amen.
So this brings us to our special presentation of the song called Love. And we're bringing the choir up, and we're going to get it going on. Say when.
Is for the way you look at me.
Okay. Yeah. Follow the ducks.
Thank you, look, new choir. I'm telling you. For a minute there, I thought they didn't want to step down. I was like, okay, guys, it's my turn now. But yes, thank you, Kathy, for doing that. So that's a remarkable story. We're having a choir talking about moving forward in life and moving our community moving forward. That is a beautiful example. So thank you, ladies. And then another side note real quick about remarkable, because remarkable is our theme this year. And I was thinking about remarkable, and I just wanted to, just mention the person that does the highway signs. Those highway signs are remarkable. I almost want to look up and find out who's doing it. Today's sign, it says super, it's a super day to have a designated driver. So it's a loving way to keep people reminded to be safe, right? So that's a remarkable story, I think. So anyways, just wanted to share that with you. And now is the time to remember the abundance of our lives and the abundance of our communities. So we are going to share our gifts and say our offering together. And remind you that we are not passing around the offering plates. We have donation boxes in the Papke Hall Fellowship. We have one in the back of the room. We also have one in the bookstore. So you can just drop your check, your cash there. Or you can also go online and fill out the stewardship program, and you can see me if you need help with that. And that will auto tithe out of your checking account or on your credit card if you'd like to do it that way to make it easy for you. So there's many ways to give to our community, and we thank you for it. So let's say our giving affirmation together. I live in a consciousness of good. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, and so it is.
Yeah, ready?
Please rise for our last song.
Go.
It feels so good to be alive. Sing that. It feels so good to be alive. I ain't thinking about my problems. I'm living now. I'm living now. And I ain't gonna worry about the future. I'm living now. I'm living now. So put your hands up if you feel like having a good time. Put your hands up if you're sharing love with all. Raise your cup if you're hopeful for tomorrow. Put your hands up if you're ready to have some fun. Now sing it. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life living alone. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life living alone. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life living alone. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life. Live. It feels so good to be alive. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. It feels so good to be alive.
Yay. All right, so if you can say our closing affirmation, repeat after me. I am love. I experience love. And I express love.
And I express love.
And so it is.
So it is.